Well, good morning, everyone. Just a couple of minutes to let all the attendees to properly join us. I'm very happy that we managed to gather over 350 participants. Okay. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this very insightful webinar. We waited a couple of minutes because luckily we managed to gather over 350 participants registered. Hopefully the vast majority will attend the webinar today. Very, very happy also that due to the incredible efforts by ICLEI and Eurocities, we managed to gather three very insightful projects. We have REALLOCATE, we have Just Streets, and Upper. And today, the aim is to go through a civil right everyone should have. So the right to move around the city freely with inclusiveness and accessibility for all. So the streets for all, we really mean it. We have cities involved today. We have federations of pedestrians. We have the city of Barcelona. We have Kozani, so Lyon Métropole. So we are very well represented. Before we start, unfortunately, the city of Valencia was supposed to be represented by Josep from MET. Unfortunately, Joseph sustained an accident and he can be with us. So we wish him a speed recovery. I think we can start now. And we start with the mobility as a right, which is one of the pillars of the Upper project. And I'm very, very happy to have Charlotte and Hauri and Mário Alves from the International Federation of Pedestrians. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Francesco. Mario, are you able to kick us off? Good morning, everyone. Mario, you're muted. I'm sorry.
Oh, there it is. Yes, there we are. Hello, everyone. Good morning. We are the International Federation of Pedestrians, and as you can see, is that we are present in the three projects, and we very much welcome the idea that mobility justice is coming about in the European projects. It's something that it goes through all the projects, and is something that we fight for the last 60 years that since we exist. Next slide, please. So we will be speaking about mobility justice, and just for you that, I don't know if you ever heard of the International Federation of Pedestrians, we have a strong presence worldwide in about 50 countries and almost all the European countries, and that's make us well placed for in those three projects to deal with the stakeholders and the walking and the importance of walking in Europe. Next slide, and I will give most of the presentation will be done by Charlotte, and I will lead then the question and answers that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mario, and good morning, everyone. So to kick us off about Upper as a public transportation project, we all know that public transport agencies faced a slew of competing priorities, everything from fleet to customer service. But what about pedestrians and walking? Should that really be a priority too? We here at the International Federation of Pedestrians are here to make the case. Next slide. And the case is quite easy to make, especially in Europe. In Germany, for example, over 85% of people who use public transportation walk to it. That's a lot of people. And we also know that time outside of the vehicle matters. It's how our transport journeys start and end. It actually makes up about 50% of our total travel time, and it makes a big impression on us. It's 70% of what we remember about our journeys. Next slide. But where to start? How to prioritize public transport or walking in public transport planning? Start with the basics in planning. Catchment areas like you see here on the screen have been fundamental, with these circular catchment areas being the simplest. The assumption has been that people are willing to walk between 400 and 800 meters to reach public transport. But by relying on a clean radius like catchment areas have in the past, we assume that there's equal walking access within it. Next slide. If you could please go back a few slides. A little further. One further, thank you. Sometimes this ends up working out pretty well. There is pedestrian access to public transport throughout the catchment area. So if you click forward one slide, it will circle the top left. Great. As shown by the dark gray area inside of the circle here. And then if you click forward one more, other times it doesn't work out so well. Here it looks like a pretty dense area, but large portions of it do not have pedestrian access to public transport. And click forward again. And sometimes it just falls short of reality entirely. Next slide. You see that people have to swim to access public transport. And next slide again. So that's why it's time to give catchment areas a reality check, and why measures like these become an issue of justice. Not so much for the swimmers here, but for the people within the catchment areas who are thought to have access to public transport, but don't. Next slide. So there are many ways to incorporate mobility justice into public transport planning. We'll go through a few of those today. Next slide. Analysis tools and data can be used. Isochrome maps like this one on the screen can be generated to show incremental walking distance to a point, let's say to a bus stop. Here you see that walking distances are not neat. It's not the clean circles that we saw on the previous screen, because these maps are calculated using distance of the walking route, not a clean radius. And while distance is one consideration, looking at it alone would lead us to assume that there's equal access to the bus within it. When of course that's not the case, we have to consider walking times. And walking times are not a one-size-fits-all measure. There's a large distribution of walking speeds across ages and abilities. To put it simply, it can take someone who is 65 twice as long to walk 400 meters to the bus as someone who's under 30. This makes a big difference in someone's access to public transport, which could in turn heavily influence their public transport experience, their decision to take public transport in the first place, or their ability to access it at all. Next slide, please. And then also we should be incorporating the pedestrian environment into public transport planning. This can be done by looking to existing footpath networks. If you're using GIS, you can remove non-pedestrian segments such as highways. You can consider barriers like steep hills or missing or impassable sidewalks like this one. Next slide, please. And beyond data and analysis, we can step outside and consider qualities of pedestrian access. What encourages people to walk and roll to public transportation, and what enables people to do so, and what doesn't? Wide, smooth footpaths do, good lighting, and signage with walking times. Next slide, please. While stairs, ramps, and long waits to cross, on the other hand, can hinder pedestrian access. Having to cross one busy street at a traffic light can be a barrier, and it can make a 2.5-minute walk to public transport over 10% longer. Next slide. And other examples of what can hinder pedestrian access, these quote-unquote pedestrian underpasses and overpasses. Next slide. Not only are they very expensive, but most of the time they're not pedestrian infrastructure at all. They're automobile infrastructure because they're built so that traffic doesn't have to be stopped in order for people to cross the street. Next slide, please. They raise accessibility issues, and they're also wildly unpopular. A study in England found that people will walk 2 to 5 minutes longer just to avoid them. That's quite a bit of time someone would take just to avoid something like this. Of course, there are occasional exceptions where these can be good tools, but we really mean occasional. What we should be asking ourselves is if we're designing pedestrian infrastructure for someone who's elderly or someone who's using a wheelchair, would something like this pedestrian bridge be the solution? Most of the time, the answer is no. So next slide, please. And to wrap it up and bring it back to the why prioritize walking and public transport planning? Passengers are pedestrians. We are all pedestrians. And our diversity and how it shapes our experience influences our decision to use public transport or not. So we believe that there's a lot to lose by not prioritizing walking and the diversity of our needs in public transport planning. Next slide, please. And just to wrap it up, if you're interested more about these projects, we've partnered with the Upper Project to write 3 articles, which we'll add to the chat. You can read more. And finally, next slide. Mario and I are available to answer any questions in the Q&A, and feel free to keep in touch with us after the presentation as well. Thank you so much for your time and attention.
Thank you very much, Charlotte. I really appreciate that you stayed within the time given. So thank you very much. Now we have 5 minutes for discussion. It was extremely insightful to go through the reality of public transport users, because sometimes we tend to focus on technologies and we tend to forget that real people are getting on board, or at least they're trying to get on board. Many of these public transport users are pedestrians. So feel free to ask your questions. If you have questions, you have doubt, you have your own experience. We have 5 minutes.
Francesco, okay. If I may,
Yeah.
Please, everyone, feel free to add your questions on the Q&A space. We'll be also checking the chat. You can add your comments if you also have questions. And thanks again for the presentation. So one of the points that I would like to ask if you could describe a little bit more is about the challenges when we talk about the tools and how data is collected and measured in different ways when we talk about walking as an active mode. For example, the ways that different surveys would ask the question or measure, and how it might impact and have historically impacted on the urban planning, the decisions on policies, and if uniforming the data or the assessment is helpful or not, because we have different target groups. So if you or Mario could comment on it, I think this is also an important topic that you brought. But would be nice to have a bit more details. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Francesco and Eliane. I think for now, it's quite obvious that nobody flies to bus stops and train stations. Yeah, everybody needs to walk, and not only in the first mile, but also in the last mile. So you usually go to work, you usually go to home, and that's actually the most difficult part of the journey sometimes, because sometimes it's evening, sometimes it's dark, unsafe. When you go back from work, for example. So that's an interesting part of transport that usually cities or operators don't cover much when they think about public transport. And I think that's something that I will challenge you to think about your last public transport journey, and yeah, vent your complaints, for example, in the chat. That would be good. Things that you felt that were not right in your last public transport journey when you walked to the public transport or from the public transport. Because as we saw by Charlotte saying, that half of the journeys is outside the vehicle. So when we think about public transport journeys, we think about being inside the train or inside the bus, but half of the journey is actually outside the vehicle. So that's a very interesting point that many people are not aware of. There it is. That's a good point. How people with wheelchairs are included in a reality check. In fact, when we start treating the first and the last mile and the walkability, and we have the International Federation of Pedestrians have walkability audits that we can do around train stations or bus stops. It does include the accessibility for wheelchairs and people that are blind. So that's something that we are in the project Upper, in the other project as well, encouraging for transport cities and public transport operators, not only check the quality of public transport, but also the catchment areas. So that's something that we can do, walkability audits with users, public transport users around train stations, for example, including people with wheelchairs and people that are blind. And that would be a way for doing the reality check. I don't know if Charlotte would have something to add about this.
No, I think you covered it very well. Thank you, Mario.
Anybody else would like to speak about their journey, first and last mile? Lucian.
I would ask a question if there are no other pressing ones from the audience. So yeah, what I noted from when Charlotte was presenting is 70% of what we remember out of a journey is the part outside of the vehicle, so the part where most likely walk. Yep. So my question is a bit this, and I'll frame it as a challenge. Maybe we remember more about that because it's the part which is less curated. Like if we are on public transport or even driving, everything is set up for us to a quite significant degree.
Yeah.
But then if we put more stress on walking, maybe that will become more curated. So what do you think about this?
I have something to say about it, but Charlotte, what do you have to say about it?
Thanks, Mario. I mean, I agree. I think we need to reprioritize how we're thinking about our cities and the built environment and the ways that it impacts us, both our access to public transport, but other aspects of our life, how it impacts our mental health. I think that's becoming a big theme lately, but and that's the voice that we hope to bring to the Upper project is reminding the transportation agencies who have so many competing interests and so few resources why we're at the table and the value that we bring, and thinking about that experience outside the vehicle is so important to the conversation.
Yeah. Lucian, now that you made the question, made me remember a point that I've been saying lately, is that usually the time, in-vehicle time or waiting times, which waiting time sometimes is counted as double as a rule of thumb. Nowadays with mobile phones, where it seems almost like zero time, that people are entertained with their WhatsApp and their emails, and walking is still when they interact with society. They see homeless people, they see things that are not right in society. So that's a very important moment where people are observing and more within themselves, that they are observing what's going on. When they are in the curated space, like you said it very well, probably you can just distract yourself with a mobile phone or other things. So that's an interesting aspect that we have to start thinking about it. Our mobile phone, for example, make zero time out of or near zero time out of public transport journeys and waiting times. But that's a very interesting point, yes.
Thank you very much. Our time's up for questions, but we can have more time at the end of the discussion, at the end of the webinar. Now, we were supposed to have this Spanish derby between Valencia and Barcelona, but as I said, Valencia can be here. So the floor is to Portí Faura y Laura Trujillo Parra from the city of Barcelona. They're going to be talking about things developed within the REALLOCATE project. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Francesco. So welcome to Barcelona, everyone, and thank you for your interest in our project. As Francesco said, we are from Barcelona and we are part of the city council of the city. The city council so far for over 40 years has been very much committed to the rights of people with disability. And so the city council has a public body, which is the Municipal Institute for People with Disabilities, that is responsible for mainstreaming accessibility and the rights of people with disabilities throughout all the city services, activities, and spaces. Next slide, please. So today I am going to explain in a nutshell what the city of Barcelona has done to improve the accessibility in public space and in the public transport network, which is complemented by the special transport service. And in this special transport service is where we have located the REALLOCATE pilot that Portí will explain. So this, next slide, please. So very much in a nutshell, because every one of these topics could last for over a week, I would say. As for accessibility in public space, the main element of to bear in mind in the Catalan law for accessibility is this imaginary tunnel that runs alongside the facade line. This imaginary tunnel, or the accessible pedestrian route, is the structuring element of accessibility in all the city. If you look at the grid or the map, there are some yellow lines where we imagine this public, this freeway that needs to ensure the continuity and connectivity of all the areas and means of transport of the city. And this will have to tackle the street furniture, other items of urbanization, the items linked to transport network, construction works, communication, signage. I will mention now all of this. Next slide, please. So regarding the street furniture, of course, all the items that are put at street level need to have an ergonomic design and need to be developed from the universal design perspective, which is a very interesting philosophy that is based on 7 principles. And all the elements need to allow the freeway. So we cannot block. We shouldn't block the freeway, the imaginary tunnel for pedestrians to circulate. Regarding the items of urbanization, every new design or new development, refurbishment of street and public space need to ensure both safety and accessibility, because there is not accessibility without safety. So, for example, when it comes to crossing between people, pedestrians, which can be people with disabilities and vehicles, we need to come out with a solution. And this is one of the main solutions in the upper picture, because it pictures the tactile pavement that goes to the point of the crossing. This includes also, for example, traffic lights, which need to be accessible for the blind, or so they need to have an auditory element. And it also includes the staying areas. And in this picture, you can see some of the staying areas that have been developed recently with the superblocks. Next slide. So the items linked to the transport, this is huge, and I will be talking about this in a moment. But when we talk about stops and parking for people with reduced mobility, we need to bear in mind also the accessibility and the chain of accessibility. So it's not accessibility only in the facility or in the public transport. You need to ensure the accessibility in all the chain. And regarding communication and signage, well, we talk about accessible communication with the law. Our law says that it is accessible communication when it includes two channels, for example, visual, tactile, and auditory communication. At state level, for example, this could be the case of the tactile pavement that is set for the blind. Next slide, please. As for the accessibility in public transport network, what we've done in this 40 years, nowadays we are proud to say that all public buses in Barcelona are accessible. This means that all of them have this ramp that you can see, and they have audio information and in the vehicle and in the bus stops. The vehicle information is also available in Braille, among other features. And this is an example of a tram station. There is nowadays a total of 93% of city metro stations are accessible. This means that they have lifts from the street level to the platform. So next slide, please. So to complement this public transport network, which has been made accessible, it began in a strong way after the Olympics in 1992. We, the City's Council, implemented this special transport service for people with disabilities and people with reduced mobility. So this is a door-to-door service for people with reduced mobility, which is carried out by buses and taxis. And we provide program services and sporadic services. Program services are the ones who share the same departure or arrival point. We do it under an annual request basis, and we do 61 daily routes every day in bus, and about 500 journeys done by taxis, either adapted taxis like the one you can see here, or regular taxis, because people with reduced mobility is not only people who use a wheelchair, but people who has other impairments, either physical or it could be also for cognitive disorders or mental disorders. And this is partially funded by the regional government, but is run by the city. And as product taxis are non-program taxis, we can program them or book them in 2 days in advance. Motivation is not asked, so we try to foster and promote mobility for everyone. And we do like about 500 daily trips a day. And we have a call center and email. Next slide. So I will now pass the floor to Mar, and she will explain the struggles we have with this door-to-door service and why we have we want to implement this pilot in the REALLOCATE project. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. As Laura said, to finish our presentation, I will briefly present the European project REALLOCATE and what our pilot test in Barcelona consists of. REALLOCATE is a 4-year project, May 2023 to April 2027, that boosts change in mobility practices. The project team, together with relevant stakeholders, develops integrated and innovative sustainable urban mobility solutions, enabling European cities to exchange knowledge, experiences, and ideas, and inspire other cities to replicate and adapt developed solutions to their own context. Within the framework of this project, our pilot aims to optimize public transport accessibility for people with disabilities, implementing a technological and procedural system for shared vehicle journeys to provide sporadic services, with the idea that more intensive use of vehicles will free up vehicles, allow for an increase in the number of users, and also minimize fuel consumption. Next slide, please. Our pilot has 2 phases. A first phase that allowed us to detect needs with all the stakeholders in the project. We discussed the needs of users, the organization and management of the transport service, and also talk about how to optimize the special transport service so it reaches more people and the environmental impact is lower. And a second phase, which is the implementation of the plan. What are the expected outputs of the pilot? We did an analysis of the public door-to-door service already provided. We analyzed the profile of the users, gender, age, and so on. We also did a description of the framework, agent roles and interests, legal and framework constraints, resources, and mobility model. We are currently preparing the results of benchmarking and best practices questionnaire, the aim of which is to carry out a comparative analysis of the special transport service for people with disabilities at the European level. And once this is done, we will work on defining of a shared journeys scheme for people with reduced mobility. And finally, we will have to define the use case and a feasibility study test. Thank you very much for your attention. And now, I don't know if you have any questions.
Thank you very much. Barcelona never disappoints. So thank you very much for the insightful figures and explanation you just shared with us. Well, I can maybe briefly talk about the also, Valencia is working on similar approaches, pedestrianizing several parts of the city. You can go to the upper website to go, to know more about the work Ayuntamiento de Valencia, MT, IETA are doing in the city. So I'm curious also about the questions by the audience, because the amount of examples and also the struggles which were shown by, Barcelona is really, really insightful. So the floor is yours.
Francesco, just to say the audience cannot activate their microphone, so perhaps if Eliane is monitoring the Q&A, would be good if we can pick some questions from there.
Yeah,
because they cannot
so far,
take the floor, actually.
Yeah, we got
apologies
questions.
for the confusion.
Sorry, yeah, we got still some questions related to the previous presentation about walkability. I could go through them. But if you have about the Barcelona case, please write them. Maybe
There
I
are
can.
some in the chat, Eliane.
Okay, let me just check.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I was checking the Q&A. So one of the questions is, how do you integrate the concept of super blocks in the project?
Yeah, sure. So when the super blocks arrived, as maybe you know, the super blocks are the idea to change the use of some streets, some main streets in the city, and change. They are not for vehicles anymore. However, vehicles can use them in a very low level of use, but accessibility anyway is ensured. How did we do that? Firstly, it is law, so it is mandatory. And secondly, we have a very much deep in our hearts participation. So the Superblocks office, the boss of the Superblocks office, run a lot of participation processes to gather all the insights, needs, and sensitiveness from different collectives of people. And as for people with reduced mobility and people, and for example, for the blind, they had to make some changes in the tactile pavement, because as traffic lights are eliminated from the layout. Sorry, I can't find the word. Since auditory traffic lights are not anymore in the superblocks because there are not so many vehicles, they need to think of another solution for that. And people with intellectual disabilities also raise some concerns about the understanding of the space, the layout, the position for garbage bins, for example. So participation, I would say, is key. And they also run a lot of workshops with shopkeepers, with women, with old people, with children. So participation is key.
Thanks. And if we have still time for a second question, next one is how the cost of the fixed and sporadic services are distributed among regional government and users.
Regarding the special transport, I understand. Yes, so the special transport system has a very low co-payment nowadays, which is when they use a taxi, they need to pay the same amount of a single ticket of the public transport network, which is now €2.65, and the rest of the cost is paid by the city council, which some regional funding, as I commented.
Thank you. And maybe a last one, how did you educate the bus drivers to stop the vehicles near the stop and open the ramps when needed?
All this is mandatory for them. We, of course, there have been struggles, and complaints, but TMB, which is the transport operator of Barcelona, has an accessibility department, universal department within their structure, and we have worked a lot with them, because the mindset of not only bus drivers but also the rest of people have needed to evolve. And I would say that also RAMs and accessibility is not only for people with reduced mobility, it is also very useful for tourists who use suitcases, for families who use prams, or citizens who use chariots for shopping. So it's for everyone.
Katerina?
Yeah, just an organizational comment. There is also a comment function in the Q&A. So perhaps if the speakers who already had their presentation have a moment to look at because there's a lot of questions that obviously we don't have time for. So maybe they can be answered by the comments.
Yes, I just found them now. I'm going to answer them now.
Perfect.
Yes. Okay,
I'm working on
you.
one too. Thank you.
Thank you. Just wanted to point it out. Thanks a lot.
And we have
Thank
one
you,
remaining.
Katerina. Oh, one more. Okay, we have time. No problem.
2 minutes still. Can commercial taxis in Barcelona carry wheelchair users? Is the requirement to book the special service 2 days before, or some hours in advance, considered a mobility barrier?
Yes, we are now trying to move a bit the system, but as I said, the scheme is at the point of collapse, because we have a lot of demand and we cannot serve so many users, and so we are now thinking of trying to serve the people who are in a more vulnerable position, or move about a bit the schema and the organization of bookings. But this is very sensitive because we have had complaints, and I'm at the technical side, but politicians don't want complaints from this group of people, and it's understandable. So it's very sensitive to balance the right, the budget, the safety, everything. It is really difficult.
Thank you. I will give the word to Francesco. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I'm very, very happy about the participation of the audience. I have no doubt what to see, is a tangible sign of commitment and appreciation of the hard work which has been developed in the REALLOCATE project. Now we shift from the mobility as a right to school streets, two sides of the same coin. I'm very happy to have Lyon Métropole and Pierre Soulard, and he's going to be talking about public space and street design around high schools, which is a hot topic also for upper and just streets. So Pierre, the floor is yours. 10 minutes.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. Good morning, everybody. So I'm Pierre Soulard, in charge in Lyon Métropole of infrastructure and mobility operations. And I will talk about public space and street design around middle schools. Next slide, please. First of all, the story began in 2020 with a new political order. The Lyon Métropole had new competencies, which are around about middle schools, and the city of Lyon have competencies is responsible about primary schools. And the second point is that Lyon Métropole is also in charge of mobility and street design. And the new elected official after the COVID crisis have a goal, aims to improve the sharing of public space, ensuring greater comfort and safety for children, and addressing long-term environmental, health, and climate challenges. Next slide, please. And when we work on accidents data, and we can see that teenagers and children are overrepresented in accidents involving pedestrians. So 8% of accidents are involving teenagers from 11 to 16 years old, which are the children that are in the middle school. But 60% of them are pedestrians, 68% are around middle school surroundings, 57% of them are in the city center compared to the location of the schools and the middle schools location. And there is a higher incidence during school opening hours and days. That are the figure below the slide about hours, days, and also the children that are between 11 and 16 years old that are overrepresented in accidents involving pedestrians. Next slide. So with the city of Lyon, we are involved in a wide project about Street for Children, which is a way to improve safety, to improve also comfort, and to have a better public space around primary schools, so children under 10. So the goals are explained there, and there is more than 200 schools over the city of Lyon, and we are working on that. But next slide. But in fact, is the Street for Children approach can be the same for teenagers. But that was the point for us, because when we are working on Street for Children, the answer were about pedestrianization, about revegetation, and a very local or accurate intervention around primary schools. But for teenagers, it's probably not the same. Next slide. So at the beginning of this program, we tried to find literature or best practices over Europe, but unfortunately, we didn't find a lot of materials. So we have to invent ourselves some guidelines to deploy this program. So in 2022, we made a large-scale field survey, which made it possible to identify the following issues about middle school surroundings. The first issue was about mobility. It deals with public transport, biking, and walking access. And it's also an issue about autonomy from children. The second issue was about security. It deals with road safety, but also delinquency prevention. The third one is about neighborhood, because the middle school are in the middle of a district, and there are various usage of the space throughout the week. So we have to merge to make possible these various usage. And it was also a question of image, because middle schools in France are in competition between institutions, and the image is very important for them. Then the past 2 years, we work with workshops that helped us to draft a recommendation guide for improving college surroundings. And since 2022, we have initial projects that have been implemented to experiment and learn from the real-world applications. So what we have learned, next slide. First of all, it's not only a question of redesigning streets. We have a lot of participation, co-construction workshops, and when we work with pupils, with students of those middle schools, we involve them to be able to co-create with us this project. And what was important for them, it deals with the privacy. For example, 25% of the time, teenagers are no at home nor at school. So they are with other friends, and probably a lot of the times they are in public space. So they want to have space to gather each other, to have meetings, and to talk with each other. The second point was about autonomy. This period of life is when you begin to be autonomous, but also it's teenagers' age is the age where you can have some risky behaviors. So it's important for us to have this point in mind. And it was also about citizenships. So how we can involve pupils in decision about public or public policy. And at the end, it's also a way to let them discover some works, and it's part of their career orientation. So the workshops and the project we've deployed around the middle schools are not only about redesigning streets, but it's also how to involve students and pupils in their environment, in their district. Next slide. Some example of co-creation and achievements. This was the first. The first one is about a middle school north of Lyon Métropole. And as you can see, it's not only road rocks just in the yes, in front of the middle schools, but it's also a large intervention on the way from the middle school to the public transport stops, for example, from the middle school to the little square that there is nearby. So it's a large intervention around the middle school. So pupils have been involved in this project, and they work on with architects and with different stakeholders in the project. The second one, next slide. In this example, we pedestrianize the street just in front of the middle school, and we involve the pupils in this project. And what is important is two facts. You can see a fresco, and this fresco was co-created with the students. It's a way to make sure they are in their district, because the fresco is about film. I don't know if you know that, but the city of Lyon was the city where the film has been invented, late 19th century, and the manufacturer when the first film has been made is just in front of the school. So it's a way to create a link between the school and the history of this district, and a lot of students didn't know that it was the location of the creation of the cinema. And the second point was it's that the architects proposed us to build a kind of a urban forest just in front of the school, with a lot of trees, with a lot of vegetation, etc. So, but in fact, pupils say to us, no, we don't need as much as vegetation, because we want also a free space. We want space to be with other friends. We want and it's probably more safer to have space because we can see each other. There's no spaces to hide and etc. So we made of course a project with less vegetation, more banks, and it's an example of a co-creation in this project, which is one of the pilots of a REALLOCATE project. And I think the last slide is what will happen now. So we have, over the city of Lyon, we have 200 schools, and over the Lyon Métropole, 120 middle schools. So from the Monday, in this term, from 2020 by 2026, we will have more than 110 interventions planned around schools or middle schools. And what will be delivered is a catalog of children's street achievements to enlighten local specificities and enlighten best practices. We will create also a methodological guide from the evaluation process of children's streets approach, and also for middle school surroundings. And we will also do an evaluation and comparison between Street for Children approach and safer middle school surroundings approach, which is very and the goal of all those deliberation is to disseminate and to make some program like that possible all around the Lyon Métropole municipalities. Thank you for your attention.
Well, thank you very much. Merci. Extremely insightful, this presentation as well. I was quite impressed by the vision of the expert and the needs of the youngsters when it comes to vegetation. This is a quite nice case to be addressed and to be also studied. Now we have discussion again. So from the audience, please feel free to tell us what you think, so we can raise the discussion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, Francesco. Thank you also, Pierre, for the very interesting presentation. I see a couple of questions here. For Pierre, have you encountered different approaches as to implement schools for children, depending on the context or neighborhood? Are there any inequality concerns that have arisen?
I'm not sure I have understood the question.
Yeah, so I think you're asking about the when you're implementing these measures at school, like what are the different approaches, also the challenges, and also this was a question that I wanted to ask, also the barriers, especially with parents and their mindset and their attitudes.
When we talk about parents, for example, they are involved in a children's street for children approach with the primary school. They are very involved because they are the pupils are never alone. They are always with adults, and the way we can redesign streets around the primary schools is very linked with the parents' needs, in fact. And there are some approach about regarding the hierarchy or the usage of the streets that is just in front of the school. If it's a narrow street or a lower traffic street, we can go to pedestrianization. But if it's not the case, we have to deal with parents and we have to deal with stakeholders to try to have some other way to redesign streets. And it's probably not pedestrianization, but it's road sidewalks widens, and but there is every time there are some revegetation, and for the middle schools, in fact, parents are not involved. It's more a consultation with the students and with the educational team. And also we have some problem and some constraint or some constraint regarding safety. When we talk about safety, we think of road safety. But when educational team talk about safety, they talk about delinquents. So it was very difficult to have an approach that's merge those two items, but we managed to do that because the reducing delinquency is also by the redesigning space with a public space more wide, with more places, more space to make pupils have space to meet each other.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I see that we don't have much time. Maybe one more quick question, and then you can keep responding in the Q&A section as well. So the question is there a process for prioritizing schools or deciding which schools receive this treatment first?
Yes, the first step is about accident data that allow us to point where are the more dangerous, let's say, schools regarding accident data. But in fact, we need also to make sure that we can work with stakeholders that are involved and that will be interested in the project. So first, we have a list with the different schools order regarding accident data. But when we are working, when we go to see mayor and to see the chief of these schools, we can work with them if they are volunteer. So it's this approach.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. We'll give the floor again to Francesco.
Very nice again. And now we are going to be having the second thematic exchange between the city of Warsaw, which belongs to REALLOCATE, and the city of Kozani, which belongs to Just Streets. So we have Aleksandra Puzyńska and Dimitris Ziouzios. I hope I pronounce it well. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Yes, you pronounced it perfectly. Hello, everyone. My name is Aleksandra Puzyńska, and I represent the city of Warsaw. I work for the Public Roads Authority in Warsaw, and we are a partner in REALLOCATE project. Together with On-Site Foundation, our Polish partner, we are implementing a pilot project in Warsaw. And I am pleased to present you our progress during this webinar. Next slide, please. So Warsaw, like many cities, faces challenges related to a high motorization rate, including in our pilot area. Our goal is to create a safe and attractive space for all users, especially for vulnerable road users, meaning, for example, children. Next slide, please. Our pilot sites are located near primary schools in Warsaw. Here are the key steps we have taken so far. We started with selection of pilot locations, of course, then data collection, co-creation process, and community engagement. Currently, we are at the stage of replication on the one hand and further implementation on the other. I will now walk you through the process while the next 16 slides display images illustrating our progress. Yes, so we selected our first location for several reasons. Mainly both school and local community raises safety concerns after an incident involving a maneuvering car and pedestrian near the school entrance. I would like to ask you to just change slides while I will talk you through the process. There is 16 of them, so there's a lot. Going back to the school location. The school is located in the middle of 1970s housing estate, which was not designed for today traffic level. The streets are narrow with no dedicated pavements, creating a shared space for pedestrian and cars. During peak hours, the traffic is particularly heavy, and children have to maneuver between cars during their way to school. A key part of the intervention involved data collection and analysis. We started with observation and traffic measurements based on the findings. We introduced a new traffic organization known as the school street. In this model, we restrict most vehicles from entering the area during morning peak hours on school days. On next slides, you will see pictures. This is before the intervention, and next, please. And next. Here we started here, and next few slides, if you could just shows the beginning of the intervention, introducing the school street. And to facilitate the transition and make it easier, make the initiative more engaging, we organized an inaugural event with memes and interactive activities. So could you please show the next slide and next one, and a few next more as well. This is the intervention, and next please. And yes, after the implementation, we encountered another round of traffic measurement to assess the effectiveness of the changes. Additionally, we performed parking analysis to evaluate the feasibility of removing certain parking spaces. Also, we provided an extensive co-creation process in cooperation with On-Site Foundation, and this included exploratory walks with children and adults, mapping session, and it was both on-site and online, also on paper. We had also a number of brainstorming meetings with housing cooperatives, school boards, and so local citizens. And could you please show next slide? Yes, this is from co-creation process. And next slide show a proposition of solution. We collaborated with an urban designer to translate the ideas co-created during this cooperation with community into actionable projects. Additionally, in cooperation with other REALLOCATE partner, ARUP, horizontal partner, we created a 3D visualization of the pilot area showing current and future situation. It allowed us to show it to stakeholders and let them experience proposed changes through VR goggles during meetings. And next slide, please. Next steps. So we are currently awaiting decision from key stakeholders, specifically the housing cooperative that leases the site from the district office. We expect the response by the end of this month, and our next steps in this location include installing permanent barriers to restrict vehicle access and allowing only residents to enter. Visual transformation of the area. We want to create a space which will be more attractive for everybody, basing on prepared designs. Also, we would like to extend school street operating hours to include also the afternoon period. While we are awaiting these decisions, we are actively monitoring the measures already in place to evaluate impact and effectiveness. And in parallel, we have decided to expand our efforts to a second location, drawing the knowledge gained from this first pilot. We will implement a similar process in Praga district, identified as one of the least safe schools surrounding. It was based on pedestrian crossing audit. And the second process will also include data collection and co-creation process and then implementation. Next slide, please. Challenges. One of the main challenges we face is resistance to change. And this is from various groups. I assume that this is due to different needs and habits. So residents oppose reducing parking spaces. Parents who drive their children to school are reluctant to change their morning routine and mobility habits. Decision makers fear backlash from residents and hesitate to approve changes. We also have compliance issues. Some parents ignore the school street we introduced. We were present for several weeks at the beginning of implementation of this school street. We were assisted by the city police, and then the rules worked very well. But some parents ignore these rules, these restriction rules, when no physical barriers or enforcement, are in place. To address these challenges, we focus on inclusive participation and engage as many stakeholders as possible throughout the process. Through co-creation. However, overcoming this resistance remains our biggest challenge. And next slide, please. So our pilot project in Warsaw aims to create safer and more accessible spaces for pedestrians, especially children and vulnerable road users. And while we face obstacles, we are making progress through the data-driven interventions and strong community involvement. We also expand our efforts to second location and hope that this approach will scale up the solutions. So thank you for your attention, and I am happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much, Aleksandra. Now we move to Kozani, Just Streets, Dimitris, Ziouzios. The floor is yours.
Hello to everybody from the city of Kozani. I'm Dimitris Ziouzios. First of all, I would like to introduce you our city. Kozani is the largest city in the region of Western Macedonia in Greece, has almost 67,000 inhabitants, is the administrative center of the region of Western Macedonia, and the city is struggling to refocus the economic future because we are now in the energy transition. Kozani used to produce the 70% of electricity by the lignite power plants. So you can imagine that our city is a city, as we can say, a labor city. It is really old. It is established by the 16th century, but it is growth by 1950. So when we have the electricity production in Greece, so you can imagine that mostly the cities has a lot of different problems, we will say, how it is built. Because we have a lot of narrow alleys and roads. So the main characteristic is the narrow streets, the lack of sidewalks, and of course the lack of open spaces. This is something that we would like to change, and we are struggling with it. And on wide roads, we have some of them. There are not plenty. The cars usually park on both sides. So you can imagine that after the government's decision from 2021 that all the lignite power plants will close by 2026. We will the city has a lot of labor problems, so a lot of young people leave our city, our region. They go abroad or to other cities. So this is a huge problem. That's why we need to focus on two things. The first one is to find new job opportunities for the people. And the second one, don't just be in the first slide, please. On the first slide. Yes. And that's this, and that we will move forward because I have to connect it. So you can understand why it is crucial for us, the Just Streets project, and why we have to make a lot of changes for the pedestrians. So the first one is that we have to find new job opportunities for the younger people. And the second one is to have a better quality life for people. So we have now, please to the next slide, we have the Just Street program, which is it is in Horizon Europe. The total budget is 11.4 million euros, and the duration is until June 2027. And the Just Street, it is mobility justice for all. So we want a safer, healthier, and happier streets. That's why it is very important for us, for the municipality, to have a happier city, so to be more attractive for people to stay here, or for people that left our city to come back and to be established again in our city. Our city belongs to 100 climate neutral cities of the EU. In this project, we have also Vilnius, Amsterdam, Metropolitan City of Milan, Riga, and Zaragoza, which is a follower city, which also belongs to 100 climate neutral cities by 2030. And we want to achieve this target, to be a neutral city. And we think that Just Streets will help us a lot. And of course, if we can change our mind and our culture to walk more. Next slide, please. So the Just Streets focusing on improving the livelihood of kids and residents around schools in respect to traffic and noise, air quality. Because we believe that we have to change our culture, and the culture is not changing with the older people. So we believe that if we can learn the younger people, the people that are the kids that are at school, we can change this behavior. So we have 6 schools that we are negotiating about school buffer zones. Next slide, please. The school buffer zones, you can see here, we have 6 schools which are in, if you want, please click to have all the ticks. Yes, thank you. Okay, that's it. So we have 6 schools which are in different positions. We will talk about it later. We're expecting to improve road safety and better air quality. We want more physical activity. We want to expand the space available to pedestrians because, as I told you before, the city is really old, and when the city growth, we have labor, so we need a lot of residents. And that's why we don't have a lot of free spaces. We have to strengthen the relationship between mobility and equality through mobility justice, and go beyond traditional mobility paradigm and break down stereotypes of active mobility to analyze perceptions and narratives. Next slide, please. You can see in this slide, you can see a typical school street in Kozani. You can see on the background, the kids are walking on the street. It is very, if you can, and I will be happy to have you here in Kozani. Generally, in this period that we have the Carnival Fest, you can see that most of the people, they are walking on the street because it is really difficult to walk on the sidewalks, because a lot of roads, we don't have sidewalks, or the sidewalks is really narrow with trees in the middle of this. So you can see in this picture, we have cars parked on the road, on both sides of the road. We have a zebra crossing that leads to nowhere. And this is how is our city generally. Next slide, please. So we have, please, if you want, click the next, yes. We have the first primary school, where you can see a lot of cars around. The third and fourth primary school, where there is a road that is in the center of the city, and we have a lot of cars in this road. Next, please. We have the fifth primary school, we saw it before. The 11th and 14th primary school, where it has two roads where the cars are driving really fast, because there are roads that move to other cities. And we have the 8th primary school, where there are the sidewalks is really narrow. So we have 6 different schools with different problems. Next slide. Our typical approach.
1 minute, Dimitri.
Yes.
1 minute.
Okay, I will be more. I will do it faster. So how does Kozani normally work with traffic issues? We have school traffic policemen, and of course the municipality police. And we're trying to find out solutions how the kids will go to school safer. Next, please. So the indicative interventions that we have is vertical and horizontal marking. Next, we have electronic information sites for the speed of the passing vehicle. We have, we want to have glowing cat eyes, new configuration of intersections with appropriate narrowings and configuration of vehicle turning movements, road pavement and cautions, total or partial traffic ban during arrival departure hours, and of course asphalt art. Next slide. Here is the stakeholders involvement. There are a lot of them, with the schools, the director of primary education, police, and other. Next slide. And our next steps for co-creation, we have already have a questionnaire to collect data from the parents, and we will do the next step. We will make some interventions. We will all together with the stakeholders decide the interventions that we will have to do, and after the interventions we'll have another questionnaire to see if they affect and how they affect their lives and their mobility. So we will see what we will do. Thank you very much. I take 2 minutes from your time. If you have
Thank you very
questions.
much, Lefkaristo, Dimitris, extremely insightful as well.
Thank you, Francesco.
Very, very happy that we managed to gather all these beautiful projects together. Now we have again some time for questions, and then wrap up and conclusion remarks will be performed. Please feel free to type your
Thank you, Francesco. I see a question for Aleksandra. Yeah, so it's asking about what's the data collection process and which data was collected. If you can explain a little bit.
Yes, of course. Thank you. We gathered it for in a few ways. First of all, we made a number of physical observations. We were present there just to observe and see. We also had traffic measurement. We did it in morning and during morning and afternoon hours. We did this traffic measurements before intervention, after intervention, and then after a few months after intervention. We also provided parking occupancy analysis because we proposed to remove some of parking spaces in the opposite to the entrance to the school. And it was hard data from traffic. On the other hand, we gathered data from residents through interviews, walking interviews, and surveys. We had also a survey in school.
Great. Thank you very much. I don't see questions for Dimitris. I have a quick one for you, Dimitris. So how do you ensure long-term sustainability and public support for these changes that you were mentioning?
You mean the public support by the government or by the parents or the kids in these interventions that we want to have?
By the parents and the kids, for example, yeah.
Yes. I have to tell you, this is insightful, that at the first time when we want to have a talk with the parents and, of course, the teachers of the schools, they were very, very negative about all these changes. They also tell us how this will happen. It is very difficult. We can't change it easy, etc. But after two meetings that we have with them, they change their minds. They think that we can have a small, in the beginning, changes, and they are now very open to us to collaborate with. They want to collaborate with us and to find a solution to this problem. But generally, we saw because the project is 1 year old, it is really fresh. So we saw that the biggest problem that we have is to change the culture and to change their minds and the way that they see all the traffic, the pedestrians, all of these, the mobility generally. But I believe that in a few months they will see because we're planning on May to make the interventions. I believe that they will see that this is the best solution. It will be better for them, for the parents, and for the children also.
Great, thank you very much. Unfortunately, we don't have much time, so maybe Francesco, you can wrap up with the last conclusions.
It's not an easy task to wrap up all the things we discussed and we were presented today. Maybe one thing is that only together we can grow and we can make our cities a better place to live for everyone, but really for everyone. So with the right mix of technology and human touch and experiences, citizen engagement, we are on the same boat. We've seen that the issues cities face every time they try to implement active mobility measures or trying to redistribute urban space in a fair way. They have resistance from the citizenship, which can be understood in some cases, but at the end of the day, we need to make the best we can, and sometimes we need to make people happy also against their will through education, through literature, and through insightful examples like Reallocate Upper and Just Streets. Unfortunately, time's up, but I encourage you to go through the website to know more about the 3 projects. And one thing which is important to mention, that all these 3 projects are affiliated to the Citizens Initiatives and the EU Mission on Climate Neutral and Smart Cities, which are with us and support us. Thank you very much. The registration will be made available in the coming days. Thank you very much again to ICLEI and Eurocities and all the speakers and all the participants. It has been a great pleasure. Thank you very much. Ad Maiora. Bye.